Hey folks, welcome back to the Leeds Gamer. I've recently seen, after the weekend's football games, that some pundits and some experts and football presenters and all the rest of it, some of them are saying that Leeds United are already safe from relegation. That it's now literally between West Ham United, Nottingham Forest and Tottenham Hotspur for that third bottom relegation zone place. Now, I disagree with that. At least a little bit. Because ultimately there's still a lot of games and a lot of games to play, a lot of points to be won. Leeds currently sit 15th place. Obviously 3 places above that dreaded position that they don't want to be in. 27 games played, 7 wins, 10 draws, 10 losses, 37 goals scored, 46 goals conceded, minus 9 goal difference, 31 points on the board. Obviously 11 games still to play. And the last 5 is quite draw heavy. Draw, loss, win, draw, draw. Next opponents are Manchester City. But it is at Ellen Road. So, I did a video recently that talked about potentially how many points Leeds could win between now and the end of the season. And this was ranging anywhere between 40 and 50. 40 seems very realistic. We only need another 9. 50 is extremely ambitious. But when you think of it, 11 games, 3 points for a win. That's 33 points that Leeds could get, but they are required to win every single remaining game, which is not realistic. Not with some of the opposition we've got coming up. Manchester City being the big outlier in that. So even if you were to scrap that game, like even if Leeds were to lose that game, I'm extremely hopeful that we don't get hammered. But I very, very rarely bet against Leeds United to at least get a draw with how they've played for the second half of this season so far. But we're against a team that's vying for the Championship. Well, for the Premier League title. And for them to catch Arsenal, they need to basically beat Leeds. You know, that gets them back. I think without checking, because I'm not looking at that top 5 right now. But I think that if they beat Leeds, then they get before Arsenal's result, then they get within about 2 points of Arsenal or something. So it's quite close. And Arsenal and Man City have still got to play each other, from what I've been hearing. So back to the original video title. Could it be that Leeds United are already safe from the relegation zone? There's a few factors to look into here. Let's start with West Ham United. West Ham are currently in the position that nobody wants to be in. They're on 25 points. They've only lost 1 game out of the last 5, with 2 wins and 2 draws in the mix as well. So the form's good. But, and this is the big caveat, certainly from a Leeds perspective, West Ham are still 6 points behind Leeds and have a worse goal difference. But the one thing going in West Ham's favour is that their form has started to pick up. I just think that it might just be a little bit, just a little bit too late. But do I think that West Ham get relegated here? No. I think if they keep this form up, and apparently they've got, on paper, one of the hardest run-ins out of any team in the bottom half. So that obviously doesn't help them. But they can, form equates to momentum a lot of the time. And their confidence will be highly boosted in comparison to what it was a few weeks ago. And when you look at it, they are only 2 points off Nottingham Forest. So, talking of Nottingham Forest, currently in the position that any team outside of the bottom three would be okay with, on the basis that it means they don't go down. And with Forest, as I say, currently 2 points ahead of West Ham United, and currently only a 3-goal difference between Forest and West Ham. So it's very close in that department as well. West Ham score more, but they concede more. And the only difference between the two of them is that, well, literally 1 win and 1 draw, isn't it? That's the only difference between the two. So things are very close between both teams. In terms of the form guide for Forest, 1 win, 2 draws, 2 losses. So again, not drastically different to West Ham. There's been managerial changes going on around these teams, with Forest bringing in former Wolves manager Pereira, and Tottenham have brought in former Juventus defender Igor Tudor. So, talking of Tottenham currently on 29 points, so 4 points ahead of West Ham. A massively superior goal difference, in that they've only on -4. Scored 37, conceded 41. So the big thing to mention here is that compared to Forest and West Ham, Tottenham's form is dire. No wins in the last 5, with 2 draws and 3 losses. They are getting dragged into this. And this is no small part because of Leeds United. Now, when you look at Leeds United's form, they've only lost 1 game in the last 5, but they've only won 1 game in the last 5, with 3 draws in and amongst that. Leeds came very close to beating 3rd place Aston Villa, but like has happened so often this season, Leeds conceded a late goal, but still gained a point. So, could Tottenham Hotspur get relegated here? I think, based on the form, I think that both West Ham United and Nottingham Forest could overtake Tottenham Hotspur here. Now, Tottenham's got another London derby coming up against Fulham, who are currently 10th. Fulham don't draw many. They've got 11 wins, 12 losses. The goal difference is very, very similar to Tottenham. Tottenham with 37 against 41. Fulham 38 against 41. It couldn't be. It's literally 1 goal difference between the two, with Fulham being ever so slightly better. So I anticipate that Tottenham versus Fulham could be a very close game. And even though Fulham don't draw many, Tottenham on the other hand have a reasonable number of draws in there. But the thing about Tottenham is they also have a lot of losses. They've actually got the same number of losses as Fulham, with 12. In terms of wins, though, Fulham have won 11, whereas Spurs have only won 7. This relegation battle is really heating up with, everyone apart from Wolves in the bottom half having 11 games remaining. Wolves obviously have 10. Wolves and Burnley are out of this and have been for some time. They're both getting relegated. I don't see a late resurgence for Burnley because they've got too many points that they need to claw back. And Wolves have just never been anywhere near it for the entire season. Wolves' main target is to avoid finishing as the lowest point scorers ever in the Premier League since it became a 20 team format. Derby County currently hold that record with 11 points. So, Wolves only need 2 more draws, which, it's feasible. With 10 games remaining for them, I could see them maybe getting 2 draws. I hope that those draws don't come against Leeds United, or at least one of them, because Leeds do face Wolves. Leeds also face Burnley. So, from Leeds' perspective, Leeds have got both Wolves and Burnley at home this season, still to come. If Leeds are serious about staying up, they need to win both of those games. Now, we know that football's not played on paper, it's played on grass. But, in terms of where those two teams are and how dodgy they've been all season, compared to how Leeds have been in the second half of the current games played so far, Leeds really have to take both of those games by the scruff of the neck and get 6 points added on to the current total. So Leeds are on 31, so that would put them on 37, meaning that, in my opinion, they only need 3 more points on top of those 2 fixtures there. I think that the other 3 points comes when Sunderland come to Ellen Road, because Sunderland's away form this season has been very poor, almost as bad as Leeds', if not worse. So, if Leeds can get wins with those 3 games, that puts Leeds on that magic 40 point mark, and I don't think we're going to need any more than that to at least finish 17th. When you look at the number of points that are required to avoid 18th right now, which in Leeds' case is 6, because they've got a 6 point gap over West Ham, and technically it's 7 with the superior goal difference for Leeds. I don't see all 3 of those finishing the season with more points than Leeds United. So could it be that these pundits are actually correct on this? Obviously, Leeds still have to get the required points. The season doesn't finish now. It's there's all these football games to play. But as I say, there are people heavily involved in the game that reckon that Leeds are going to be safe. They just don't see Leeds dropping below Tottenham, Nottingham and West Ham. They just don't see it. And I hope they're right. I hope Leeds stay up, obviously. It's my club. But this is not clear cut yet. And until Leeds get that magic 40 points, I don't think it will be clear cut. So then it begs the question, who do I think is getting relegated? Now, Alan Pardew on TalkSport said that he does not believe Tottenham will get relegated because their players are too good. And there's been a couple of pundits that have said a similar thing. Let me point something out to you. No club is too good to go down. Leeds United proved that. That within about 3 seasons they went from being Champions League semi-finalists to relegated. If that can happen to Leeds, then, Tottenham winning Europa League or whatever it were that they won, they can go from winning that to getting relegated within a similar number of seasons. Hell yeah. Also, Tottenham have a horrendous player unavailability list right now. Lots of injuries to some of their better players. They are forced to play former Leeds United youngster Archie Gray out of position because they are so lacking in certain areas that are not midfield. In an ideal world for Tottenham, they would play Archie Gray in midfield, surely. But as things stand at the moment, he's one of their most versatile players. He did play fullback for Leeds in his one full season with Leeds in the Championship. So he has played in a more defensive role. But it's not his natural role. Archie Gray is going to be a fantastic midfielder in a couple of years' time. But Tottenham currently have to use him out of position. So this is the desperate situation that Tottenham Hotspur find themselves in. They finished 17th last season. And the only reason they didn't go down was because the three teams below them were absolutely crap. As things stand this season, the bottom two are pretty crap. Certainly Wolves are absolute dross. And Burnley aren't that much better. But when you look at the form guide really does go in favour of West Ham United, Nottingham Forest and Leeds United currently. Tottenham Hotspur are in terrible form, big injury list. They've brought in Igor Tudor, who's got a bit of a mixed reputation as a manager. He was a very good player, very useful centre-back for Juventus back in the day. But his reputation as a manager is very hit and miss. So, it's always a risk when you bring a new manager in, isn't it? But the one thing to go in Leeds' favour right now, well, a couple of things. One, we don't have a massive injury list. Most of our players are available for selection. A couple of them need a bit more match sharpness and a bit more match fitness. That'll come. But as things stand, we've only got one player injured. On top of that, Leeds' home form, especially in night games, under the management of Daniel Farker, has been very good. We haven't lost one yet. And there is a couple of home night games coming up. The atmosphere at Leeds right now is very positive. All around the club, the players are playing for each other, they're playing for the manager, they're responding, they're putting in performances, they're not getting outplayed by anybody. The only team that has absolutely demolished us this season is Arsenal. And look at where they are right now. But every other team, we've had losses obviously, but the two losses that hurt the most this season, from a statistical point of view, was losing 9-0 on aggregate over the two matches against Arsenal, a 5-0 and a 4-0. So when you look at Leeds' situation here, we've had 10 losses, 2 of those against Arsenal. 9 goals. That -9 that you see on there, one way of looking at this has been solely created by Arsenal walloping us twice. So if you take those 2 losses out of the equation, Leeds now would actually be on a neutral 0 goal difference, which is really ironic. So in all of the other games, there was a couple of poor losses in there, but not disastrous ones. And for the most part, Leeds have been extremely competitive. So I'm going to conclude this by saying that all of these football experts, pundits, presenters, all the rest of it, that are saying that Leeds aren't really in the relegation battle anymore, I think they're at least partially right. Now Leeds still have to get the job done. But with the positivity at the club, with the fact that we've still got a handful of home games, with a couple of them being night games, with the way that the players are playing, the positivity around the club, the fans are behind everyone, the players are playing for the manager is fully behind his players. There's a unity there. That's why we're called United. That's why we are the real United. We are 100% united right now. And that is why I think that Leeds will stay up this season. Because that positivity is going to show in a fair chunk of these matches remaining. I think we get the 3 wins that we need for 40 points. And I think 40 points keeps us above that relegation zone. The one thing that's let us down this season has been the away form. We've really struggled away from home. But even the performances have tightened up a little bit away. Compared to when we were losing with a bit of a whimper. I just feel pretty good about what's coming up, Not necessarily immediately, because we're up against Man City. And again, huge credit has to go to the club for how they've negotiated things this season. First half of what we've played so far, yeah, a little bit iffy in parts. But since then, the losses that we've had, I think the only loss that we had, aside from the Arsenal loss, was a very narrow loss against Newcastle. And we deserved something from that match. We took the lead 3 times. So we haven't been outplayed. And that was away from home. So we are getting a little bit better away. And we've picked up a couple of away draws. And it's like everyone says, if you win your home games and draw your away games. I mean, in my opinion, it doesn't matter if you win away or you win at home, it's still 3 points. But, based on Leeds' form this season, if we keep winning the home games, or at least not losing the home games, and if we can pick up at least a draw away, we're staying up. We are staying up. I really hope this video doesn't jinx it. Things can change in football. You can get massive injuries and a whole handful of suspensions. You can get dodgy refereeing decisions. Or just dodgy referees in general. And generally speaking, you can just get a little bit unlucky. But with the way that some of the Leeds players are playing at the moment, Calvert-Lewin and Metcher are scoring goals. It's unfortunate that we're missing Okafor, but he will be back in a couple of weeks' time, all being well. Aronson's working his socks off. Ampadu's leading everything in that midfield area. Even players like Gruev have stepped up. Gruev came very close to scoring against Aston Villa. Nice control effort that just literally went over the corner of the woodwork. Gruev's stepped up his game. The defence by and large are playing well. There's a lot of positive performances. James Justin has come out of nowhere and been really good these last 10 games or so. The fullbacks, Gabby Gudmundsson and Jayden Bogle. I mean, Gudmundsson's such a complete fullback / wingback. The only thing that's missing from Gabby's game is goals and assists. But he's excellent. And then Jayden Bogle, I mean, he's been working on his crosses. Some of his crossing at the moment is absolutely superb. He's putting it on a plate for anyone that goes into that box. Whether it's DCL or Metcher. They're getting onto these crosses. You know, there's good performances. You know, Strout, Roden, Beal. You know, such a strong trio at the back. It's really positive stuff. And, you know, it can only get better in my opinion. As soon as we get Okafor back, if we can keep the squad as fit as possible between now and the end of the season, and then Daniel Farke's got all these different types of players and different options available to him. You know, the reason that we've kept ourselves out of that relegation zone since the second half against the Man City game is because of the tactical flexibility that we've been able to show. 1 minute we're playing 5-3-2/3-5-2, the next we're playing 3-4-3. You know, and by kind of interchanging the style and the base formation and the personnel at different times in games, this is, you know, this is why Leeds have reached 10 draws this season, because we're quite hard to beat. You know, we've scored 37 goals in 27 games. That's not bad for a team in the bottom half. That's not bad for a bottom half team at all. You know, look at what some of these teams above Leeds have scored so far. 29 at Crystal Palace, 28 at Sunderland, 29 at Everton. You know, Leeds are ahead of these teams. These teams are ahead of Leeds, but they're not scoring more than Leeds. As I say, Leeds are just very unfortunate that Arsenal basically ripped them a new one twice. That's all this comes down to. So, to kind of conclude a little bit here, are Leeds already safe from the relegation zone? I think half the job's done. And when I say that, I mean that Leeds have put themselves in a position where they've already got more points than Tottenham, Nottingham Forest and West Ham. So that's your first major thing. But secondly, the atmosphere at the club. Everything's so positive. You know, you can see it on the pitch. You can just sense it. You can feel it. You can hear it in the atmosphere at the Ellen Road games. You know, and even in the away games, the fans are really getting behind the players right now. And this is going to make all the difference. Things at Tottenham right now are toxic as hell. Things at Forest aren't exactly smelling of roses. You know, Forest in the league are kind of very hit and miss / poor. But they are very good in Europe at the minute. Or have been at least. West Ham's form up until the last couple of weeks was poor, but it's improved. You know, as I say, look at the last 5 weeks, but the 5 weeks before that was really not so good. And now they've got 2 wins and 2 draws in the last 5 games. You know, which is not relegation form. I mean, look at Fulham. Fulham are 10th, but they've had 3 losses in the last 5. Newcastle, 11th, have had 4 losses in the last 5. Sunderland, 12th, 4 losses in the last 5. You know, these mid-table teams are the ones that are in relegation form right now, apart from Tottenham. Spurs are the team in real trouble right now, and as Pardew mentioned, the goal difference could be key for Tottenham, but it's the only good thing they've got going right now. Some people will say that the players they've got, even after the injured ones, are still too good to go down. I don't think they are. I don't think they're too good to go down. I think Vicario is a god-awful goalkeeper. He's not big enough, he's not strong enough, he doesn't command his box. I think he's dreadful. They've got Romero, who's a red card merchant. You know, Van der Ven's decent. I'll give him that. But then they're using Archie Gray as a defender as opposed to a midfielder. I think Tottenham go down. I think Tottenham go down. I think Forest and West Ham finish above them. And I think Leeds finish above all of them. So, there we go, folks. Half an hour gone, so I'll leave it there. But hope you've enjoyed watching the video. Let me know your thoughts about the current situation with the relegation battle. Who do you think is going to be the team that gets in 18th place at the end of the season? Do please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Do please like the video. Do please hype as well. All the best, everyone. Have a good one. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.